Hello, welcome to the People Profit Podcast, the show where we flip the script on traditional business thinking and prove that when you put people first, profits follow. I'm Sandra Coker, your guide on this journey to more engaged teams, loyal customers, and a healthier bottom line. These episodes are brought to you by Human Power Solutions, helping organizations unlock the human potential that powers performance. Whether you're a leader, an HR pro, or a curious change maker, buckle up. We're diving into fresh stories, real-world strategies, and a few laughs along the way. Ready to turn your workplace into a profit-powered people machine? Let's get started. Hey, everyone, and welcome back to the People Profit Podcast, where we explore how people-first leadership drives profit, purpose, and positive change. I'm your host, Sandra Coker, and today we're diving into the heart of leadership in today's workplace. It's a workplace that we've never seen before, 5 generations working side by side, roles and teams shifting faster than ever, and a growing need for leaders who lead with humanity, not just hustle. Today's guest brings a refreshingly real and deeply grounded perspective on what leadership looks like when we ditch the labels and connect as people. I am absolutely thrilled to welcome my dear friend, colleague, Graham Dobbin. He's a director at the People Strategy Group with Dale Carnegie in Australia. He's worked across cultures and continents, and his leadership approach is grounded in flexibility, trust, and belonging. So let's jump in. Hello, Graham. How are you today?
I'm great. Good to see you. Thank you for having me on.
I'm so excited to have you on. And you and I have been friends for about 5 years now. The move from New York to Australia, and always keep in contact. And you're one of my favorite people, so I'm really excited to have. Oh, thanks. We're really excited to have you on. I was reading your prep form, and you said something that made me kind of smile because, everything you say always makes me smile. But when you said that you're not even sure how you got where you are, and that's pretty honest. Can you talk a little bit about your leadership journey and, kind of how you landed in this amazing role that you're in right now?
It really is a difficult one because I think there's a lot put on planning, goal setting, and everything, and I'm maybe slightly controversial with that at times. I think if I'd actually set out goals and planned my career, I would not be where I am and would not have experienced, half the things that I did. So when I kind of thought about the question of how did I end up here, I'm not quite sure. And I know it's a series of me saying yes.
Yeah.
And it kind of develops. And there wasn't a single big moment that changed, but there's been a series of people coming into my life who I've interacted with or worked with that have just helped me kind of develop these things. And I the only thing I can put this down to is having that mindset of like, just keep on trying different things. And that's almost kind of full answer.
Yeah, I love that. And you're from Scotland. You lived in the US. I'm sure you've lived all other places as well. Now you landed in Australia. That's a kind of a big journey. You must be just kind of like I'm going to try this and go for it. Would you say that about yourself?
Yeah, I would say that's fair. The biggest move I made ever was from the east to the west coast of Scotland. There was a huge culture shift for me there.
Yeah.
I then landed in Manchester in Northern England for many years before kind of heading to New York. And yeah, I think once you've done one of these moves and one of these shifts, everything else seems that little bit easier. And it's almost like, why wouldn't I? And I as a leader, sometimes I struggle with understanding why people wouldn't try things.
Yeah.
And that's something I need to constantly work on. But I'm constantly looking at things and say, well, why wouldn't I do this? What would it be the benefit of not doing it rather than what would be the benefit of doing it? And I'm a great believer that I could settle anywhere geographically,
Yeah.
That we'll always find kind of good, and we'll find our place wherever we are. So that's the background.
Yeah.
That's my approach.
So what are some of the leadership lessons that you picked up along the way that kind of shape how how you lead today? 'Cause you lead a team right now, correct?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the things you
Um,
picked up?
I was thinking about it and going right back. I remember one of my first jobs from school was working in a jewelry store. It was a big chain in the UK. And
You were
anybody
you sold jewelry?
did. Yeah, it was a shop, and I had this very prestigious assistant trainee, assistant manager, or something like that. Um, but the store was probably the biggest. It was the biggest chain in the UK. Oh,
Yeah.
chain! You see what I did there? And it was called Ratner's. And I remember one of the first things I heard was a guy called Gerald Ratner. Just what an amazing leader he was. How he connected, even though there was hundreds of stores, he was just regarded so highly. If a new manager was put in a store, he gave them time.
Mhm.
He flew them down to London so they could have lunch or coffee together or something. So there was this just real focus about. He was a real people person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if anybody knows the story about Gerald Ratner, he almost destroyed the company with one comment that he did at the Institute of Directors. He made a flippant joke about the quality of one of the products that they sold, and he ended up front page headlines
Oh,
in the UK, and it genuinely finished the business
oh my God.
over a period. And if you in the UK, even if you mention his name now, that's what he's remembered for, is that one line. And yet everybody I interacted with, whether they had met him personally or just kind of been influenced by people who had,
Hmm.
couldn't speak highly enough about this guy. And that
Okay.
was one of the big lessons, was like just one slip. That's
Yeah.
what we get remembered for. And as humans, we tend to remember people's mistakes rather than the kind of the positives, or how many positives do we need to overcome a negative.
Yeah.
It was a really interesting. So that got me thinking. That got me thinking a lot.
So you've never made any mistakes ever?
If one or two, that's why I need to be as positive as possible now. I'm trying to backfill. And I think that's the we've got all these labels for leaders.
Yeah.
And being part of kind of the Dale Carnegie family, the global kind of the business here, it's really, we can talk about tips and tricks and techniques, and it's always about an approach. I mean, one of the principles within the book How to Win Friends and Influence People is, if you make a mistake, admit it quickly.
Right.
Just tell
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
What does that do? And so it's always about kind of having a run of humility behind it. And that's not necessarily how I was brought up to kind of think about leadership. I think it was probably more brought up to defend yourself, or if somebody put you down, to kind of almost attack rather
Yeah.
than step back and just go, somebody's maybe just misspoken.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that really who they are? And if I'm being, it's just you and I, Sandra, isn't it? So
Yes.
I can tell you this secret.
Yeah.
I would say it wasn't until I got here to Australia that I kind of really understood that,
Okay.
which is very similar to the US, very similar to the UK, but just that little bit more laid back,
Hmm.
just that little bit more. Take your time, think about it, and it's a really interesting, just very nuanced culture shift. I can't remember who said it, but we're a world separated by the same language or something like that. Is we feel because we say the same things and use the same words that we're exactly the same, and we're not.
Yeah. That's very true. Very true. And you know it because you've been all over the world. You think, you have this really wonderful belief that leadership should be simple. People they want to thrive, they want to belong. And I think that's something a lot of people need to hear right now. But what does this belief look like in action? Let's say like on a Monday morning when your team is under pressure, how do you create space for them without overcomplicating what they have to do? And have you ever had to help someone reconnect to the sense of purpose of the work? when they're feeling lost?
I've had to help myself reconnect with it. I mean, um, we need to lower the bar. I think the bar sometimes is set too high that we need to have, we need to be on our A game all the time, and that's just not how we are. So I make mistakes a lot. I'm pretty comfortable with admitting where I make mistakes. I think I catch them all. But lower the expectations of ourselves, allow us that moment where it doesn't quite go right and we can adjust. And it feels like sometimes we don't give ourselves that space to do it. So I think that's definitely the first part. Second part that's taken, if we look at me on disc, I'm high DI, so you want to get action taken very quickly. Just that purpose is stepping back. Just take that extra few seconds. And I'm talking about Dale Carnegie a lot here, but the overarching, I think there's something missed in a kind of a lot of the learnings that we've got from there. He mentioned really clearly, be a good person who is skilled at, say, presenting. Or don't be a great presenter, be a good person who's skilled at doing this.
Yep.
Be a good person who's skilled at leadership. And when we put that before the skill part, the skill part looks completely different. Completely different.
Yeah, we actually, on a personal side, like we use that a lot. My older son has type 1 diabetes, and people would call him a diabetic. And I'd be like, no, he's a little boy who has diabetes. That's his identity, is he's a little boy, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of thing there is, I'm a great presenter, a great podcaster, whatever. It's like, no, there's a person underneath that. I love that. What about with it, as we're heading towards 2030, like think about this humanity piece, right? There's a lot of more questions than answers, especially on technology, generational differences, and global changes. There's lots of things there. Our audience is a mix of audience, but we gear this podcast towards the up and coming managers and leaders in our organizations. What advice would you give those leaders who are coming of age in this time where everything is moving so fast?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned at the beginning the generational kind of spread that we're going to get, and it's really interesting. All the research that we're looking at is almost suggesting that people will be entering the workplace earlier. Kind of the traditional academic route. I don't know where you are, but certainly where we are here, we're seeing that people are coming out with redundant degrees. Yeah. So you spent 3, 4, 5 years to get a degree. Now all of a sudden it's been taken over by technology. So we see that happen. And technology is also going to allow us to kind of work much later, 70s. It's not unheard of into the early 80s, and why should we?
Right.
So we're going to get that. We're going to get that great spread. I'll come back to what I said earlier. Lower the bar. We don't need to find perfection right away. Not everybody needs to have everything immediately. And I know that's where we are with information, and that's how if we want to put into generations, the millennials and then Gen Z and Alpha coming up in 2030 have kind of learned. But just lower that bar. Take the time to kind of have a look around. Everything we look at, we see that the influence of technology, but the basis is nothing new about how we connect with people.
That's true.
Also, there's a lot going on. We're running several kind of webinars at the moment on the trends up to 2030. And if we look at AI and we look at technology, where it's going to influence, we're already talking about deep fakes. We're talking about kind of misinformation.
Yeah.
We're of the opinion, and I'm saying we because it is the team. We're of the opinion that face-to-face, in person, is going to be more important than ever.
I agree.
We've seen Gen Z and millennials, younger millennials and Gen Z saying, how do I make friends? How do I connect with people? How do we get that? Again, research shows that they want to be in the office more than Gen X and boomers, which is almost counterintuitive. How do I know I'm speaking to Sandra? How do you know if you're speaking to Graham?
Right.
And the truest way of knowing that is by getting together in a room. So we think that that's going to be, so be open to that. Be open to be open to your opinions changing, because they will.
Right.
And I think if any advice, that would be it. Be open to your opinions changing.
I think you're so right. So I've got I got a millennial / Gen Zer. She's right in the line. And then I've got a Gen Zer, and my youngest is fully remote. And he's just like, it's hard. He loves he's super social, and he, loves to, connect. So, he does do some travel and things like that. And then my daughter goes in, they have every other week that they go in. So she gets her fill of being in the office. But promotion wise, mentoring, all of that is lost if you're fully remote. Not lost, but it's just really hard to get there. It's really hard.
More difficult.
Yeah.
We can go back into personalities and behaviors and what our natural traits are. We saw this during COVID, where I suddenly got an idea of somebody who's more likely to be extroverted, more likely, not totally, but more likely. Getting an indication of what I'd been doing to other people who were introverted and trying to get them to change. Because all of a sudden, we couldn't get that energy from people around us.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be an interesting dynamic where there will be a shift to people wanting to be more in the office, maybe limited, maybe kind of hybrid.
Yeah.
And not necessarily 5 days a week, but that human interaction is actually going to become more important than maybe we've thought it's been over the last few years.
Yeah, I agree. I see a shift in my kids' friends and things, and what they're thinking and what they're saying. So when you think about the mindset, a lot of people have a lot of fear of change. What is mindset? How does it play into whether, you lean into these changes, or you're like, I'm good. I'm not going to go in there,
Yeah, it's again, probably the biggest interaction we're having globally at the minute with organizations is talking about how do you lead through change, but also adapt. And I think there's sometimes that when we've got leaders and we want them to help others go through change, sometimes we forget the leaders are going through it as well.
Yeah.
So they're actually the filling in the sandwich. They've got the pressure from both sides. And I think we need to be really aware that there's kind of the self, how do I deal with it, as well as others. I've got a really simple kind of thing that I look at. If this is a change that external, there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
I can either moan about it and then deal with it, or just deal with it. And most of us have seen, or a lot of people have seen, the Kubler-Ross curve, which kind of takes us through the emotional part of what happens in change.
Right.
We regularly say, where are you? Oh, I'm in frustration. Okay, what's the point of being in frustration? Let's get out of it. How do we deal with this, rather than kind of getting into the circle? One of the things I do see is if you've got 3 or 4, maybe not kind of 1 or 2, people are negative within a team, how it really feeds off itself.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen that in other places.
Yeah.
When OpenAI first launched, coming up for 2 years, we went really heavy in saying, this is positive.
Yeah.
We don't know why, it just is. Because every industrial revolution has been.
Yes.
It's done something, it's created different types of roles and jobs and created wealth.
Yeah.
So we can fear this. It's out.
Right. Not going anywhere.
Once it's been opened there, so how do we deal with it?
Yeah.
And the more that we push it away, and we're still seeing people who are who kind of refuse to work with this, or just expect an answer to come.
Yeah,
it's not going to come. This has got a long way to go.
It's here, and we're just getting started. It's not. Yeah, like you said, it's not going anywhere. One thing that jumped out was one of your comments about how we often label people instead of saying flexible and open. We make an assumption about someone and that's who they are, right? And it's just a common trap, especially when we're moving faster under pressure. Can you share a time when you had to check your own, like you had to check yourself or help a team break out of that labeling mindset?
I think I'm doing it daily. I think we've got natural biases. We've got natural ways that we interpret information around us. And it's really easy to look at a single position or a statement or a person and turn around and say, well, that must be what it is. There's just kind of that getting out of that pattern, that personal pattern, and being able to just turn around and say, is that really all the information I've got? Are we sure? Just because someone is, an ideal example. What we've seen is change fatigue has increased incredibly over the last 4 or 5 years. And again, we can, it's kind of obvious. Right? There was a research done by Gallup that said, 2018, 2019, people went through kind of 2 or 3 organizational changes a year. Now it's up to like 8 or 9 or 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
Regardless of the number, I'm always slightly skeptical to just throwing a number at it. We know it's significantly higher.
Right.
And change fatigue can come out as resistance, as negativity, as inflexibility. And it's just somebody who's really challenging to, is being challenged to cope with it. And I think one thing I think Australia does very, very well is it's got in law now for businesses. We've known how to keep people safe, physically safe in a business. We would never think about not having a testing electrical equipment, or if we were on a site, not making sure people had PPE on and didn't do dangerous things and use tools and equipment. And we've got something now called psychosocial awareness here. It's been in for 2 or 3 years. And that's a mandated approach for companies that they must have a look at the mental and psychological well-being of people, not just psychological safety, which is about being open, the psychological well-being. And if you actually look at the government websites, the risk assessment's exactly what we would do with physical. How is this likely to impact someone? What's the potential response? But a key part in that is, what are the triggers? What makes us actually say, okay, this person's acting in this way. It's not necessarily normal. Let's step back. What's caused this? Rather than deal with that behavior, let us just step back for a moment and understand the bigger picture here. And it's kind of obvious, isn't it? And we've all been through it.
Yeah.
But it's not something that we do. We tend to be triggered and react to behavior rather than, okay, what's the root cause here? Quickly, can we work it out? Let's take a step back.
Running a business is hard. Developing your people shouldn't be. At Human Power Solutions, we act as your outsourced chief learning officer, designing custom learning and development experiences that actually move the needle. No fluff, no cookie cutter workshops, just results. Whether your people need better communication, stronger leadership, or less burnout, we provide strategic solutions that align with your goals and keep your team moving forward. Visit hpowersolutions.com and unlock your team's full potential without disrupting operations.
So how important do you think that emotional intelligence is for new leaders, when they're coming in, to be able to kind of read the room and read, kind of get a sense of what their people are going through? Because you and I both know that you walk into a room and you got your face on and, everything's great. Yeah. We all do it. Well, you don't, because everything's always great with you, but,
I've got one of those spaces that I cannot hide how I'm feeling. And I've come to terms with that. I used to try to hide how I can't.
Yeah.
So I just kind of need to deal with it. So that makes me more aware as well. We've done a lot of research over the last 2 years with every leadership program that we run. everyone. We gathered data on everyone. And there's a couple of simple questions I asked at the beginning. And this is especially for emerging leaders, new coming into it.
Yep.
Think of somebody who we really respect, somebody who we regard as a great leader. It could be somebody we've not met, it might be from television, or it might be a political leader, which is sometimes a bit of a stretch. It might be somebody it might be somebody in a family or somebody at church or folks or something like that. What stands them out? What's the traits that stand them out?
Mm-hmm.
And without fail, and I mean this without fail, regardless if I'm working with engineers, accountants, legal profession, students, absolutely. So we do a lot of graduate programs. Without fail, we get a list of words up there that are 80 to 90% attitude.
Mm-hmm.
It's about they care. We have deep discussions about, they say trusting. Well, can we be trustworthy if we're not trusting?
Right.
Can we be respected if we're not respectful? So there's this kind of combination of traits that seem to be, the words are different. You know, there's something like 300 positive traits in English language. The words tend to be different, but there's definitely a theme that is who they are, not necessarily what they know.
Yeah, I love that.
And we go so much for kind of the academics of the intellect, rather than just like, we're back to be a good person.
Yeah, being a good person. Yeah. And have you ever done that with the bad? We do a good and bad leader characteristics, and the bad leader. There's a theme through those words as well.
Yeah.
You know?
And again, if you look at behavioral styles, I love working on behavioral styles where we talk, and anybody's not seen something like DISC or something like that, which I personally think very much underutilized. We talk about somebody being fast-paced or direct or something.
Mm-hmm.
No, but let's go into the traits that come out when they're under pressure.
Yeah.
That's the things. There's another team assessment called Dobbin, and they've got this lovely phrase. It's an allowable weakness.
Oh.
It's not. So let's take a high D in DISC. If we are decisive, we go with authority, we make decisions quickly, we like to get tasks done. Patience is not going to be natural. It's almost 180 degrees. So most leaders, good leaders, when they realize that, they work on that patience side, or they have to step back and regulate kind of the emotional part.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll come back to what we mentioned earlier. If we look for patterns as humans, which means if that leader is impatient once, the 10 times I've regulated it goes out the window. We ignore them.
Right. Yeah.
And we just look at kind of that, we get confirmation.
Yeah.
That that's how they are. They're just impatient. And it's not. It's almost the balance of the strength. So looking at that in that way is a real eye-opener.
And I think you're right. The behavioral, whether it's predictive index or DISC or, whatever it is, right? So that's something that we do with all of our clients is they have a choice of, which assessments they want to do depending on what they're looking for. But that's something that we always start off with, because you're right. If people actually don't understand themselves and how they react in certain situations, then it's hard to build that team. And you have built some amazing teams. You gave an example when you took a trip to Beijing with partners, right? That says a lot about the culture that you're building. Why do you do these kind of shared experiences for a team?
I'll be on. Not my idea. This is something that was happening within the business when I got here.
Gotcha.
The kind of culture and team, and I've seen it being spoken about a lot. In businesses, and we'll go bowling, or we'll go for pizza, and we're all good friends. The value of just taking that step back and sharing. We know what it's like to break bread together.
Mm-hmm.
People kind of who there tends to be a deeper bond, and what we've done, and I say is business partner Jordan Wang, who has brought this in as soon as he started the business, was how do we make sure that there is almost those unexpected moments where we can just spend time together? It doesn't have to be a special thing. It's, we like to do a trip once a year if we can with the team, and we'll be flexible with it so we get the best value for it. So it's not just, this isn't about throwing money at something.
Right.
This is genuinely about the experience, and nobody expects absolute luxury when we go on these things. It's about spending time together.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is partners go as well. And that's not forced. That's just open.
Right.
And I don't think I've ever been in a team where people just get on. We get on. There's no edge to it. If somebody wants to do something different, that's fine. We'll catch up later.
Yeah.
We tend to kind of work as a group.
So when you,
and it's really refreshing.
So that's really, people are really kind of letting their guard down, right? When you do these kind of experiences together, right? And so it changes the game for workplace relationships. How does that affect your clients?
Again, that's an interesting point, because we were just talking about this week. They were kind of interchangeable with clients. So sometimes, we've got business development people in here. We've got people who are kind of front facing with clients. But as someone who's maybe designing the content or looking at kind of more the implementation, sometimes we build up a relationship as well, and they'll come through us. So we've got this kind of no ego policy that's an unwritten policy. It just kind of happens.
Yeah.
Regardless of what we need to do for the client, we do it. And it's not about, well, I own this and you own that. Nobody owns anything.
Yeah.
It's just, and if we can have that common voice. Do we make mistakes? Yep. Do we say things that we wouldn't agree on? Yep. But I think the analogy that's used regularly is, let's create a family in a workplace. Let's just hold that moment.
Yeah.
I'm going to challenge anybody who's listening to this. When was the last time you went a month without falling out with your family?
Right.
That's what happens. It's not about those disagreements. They're going to happen.
Yeah.
It's about how you deal with them. And we tend to kind of give a couple more slack to our family because we know them. We know the intent behind it. It doesn't happen all the time, that, but we tend to kind of give people the benefit of the doubt. And that's what a family is internally when we're looking at a team. It's not about everybody getting on, because that doesn't happen. The highest performing teams in the world have fallen out. Individuals have fallen out.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
But it's how you get back from that. Yeah, absolutely.
It's that healthy conflict, right? That we talk about. I love Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek's like, he talks about, we build a family. He's like, we're not really family. He's like, but we're like brothers and sisters. We might go at each other, but if someone comes for us, we are rallying together.
Oh yeah.
Right? So I think that's pretty cool. But for someone listening, a new leader might be like, well, I don't have a budget. I don't have a budget to spend. What's a small thing that leaders can do, especially these newer ones that are just trying to become that servant leader, what can they do to help build trust? What are some of the small things that people might be able to do to build trust in their teams?
There's lots of things we can do. If we're talking about kind of doing things together, there are lots of things we can do with that budget. One of the first ones that we did when I arrived here is we did a beach day. Now, I know everybody doesn't have the weather to do a beach day, but the whole team went to the beach, and I didn't quite understand what that meant. But we did a whole day at the beach, playing around, just activities, having a bit of fun. What did people really value? And most people value getting out, getting into nature, getting even a small walk or something like that. There was a whole reason Central Park in New York was created, which it was understood even in that time that people could not just work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Right.
They needed somewhere to go and have leisure. Well, create that environment. There must be places you can do that. Another one is just have candid conversations. There are more. There's plenty of kind of just little quirky models out there to be able to set up a conversation in a very specific way that we don't go to the natural places of what do you do? How did what did you study at school or college? And what was your last job like? We get to just open up without being intrusive.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's sometimes forgotten to allow people to be as open as they want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that.
That kind of thing. Just give that bit of space.
Yeah, just having those little conversations and sharing a little bit about, what you do and
Go for a walk.
or like, who you are as a person. I think that's important, for sure. Yeah.
Change
So-
I'm a great believer in changing the scenery. Just
Yes.
change the scenery.
hmm So, for what about like leaders that have a remote workers, right? People that we've got virtual assistants are everywhere now, and maybe you have a team like that. What do you, what's your
Well,
thoughts on that?
We have virtual assistants. We brought them to Beijing with us. Wherever we can, how do we create an opportunity for people to get together? It's a really difficult one remotely because many of us will have experienced. Remember when we did the happy hours, the online happy hours during COVID? Yeah, they were exciting for about a week.
A week, yeah.
weren't they? Yeah. Oh, this is great. They maybe lasted a month.
Yeah.
And
Actually, I got a margarita box one time, and I was like, "Well, this is cool," in the mail. So, that was nice.
And it's those little things. Okay, we're gonna jump on and do a lunch and learn. Then all of a sudden, everybody gets a delivery of coffee or a sandwich or they get a voucher to do something.
Yeah.
How do we transfer as much of that? I find that basic things like having a culture when we're online, make sure your camera's on.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Right.
You wouldn't hide underneath a desk if we were in person.
Right.
Make sure our camera's on. Make sure that we can hear and we can be heard.
Right.
That's almost the first part before we do anything else. And I've seen so many companies where that's not the case. They allow them people not to have their camera on, and that's personally, I may be fairly harsh. I think it's disrespectful to our colleagues. So it's not necessarily the big moments; it's the little kind of incremental parts that we allow that shifts a culture.
Yeah. Yeah. What about, so when you think about the great leaders, you talk about traits of great leaders, people like leaders that are calm, respectful, trustworthy, all those things. Why do you think that, I don't know if you experience this, I experience this all the time, is people still default to promoting the smartest or most experienced person rather than the one that is the best one with people or more emotionally aware? Why do you think we still kind of fall into that? Like I gave advice to one of our clients the other day, and I said, I'm like, look at the person that can motivate people. You can skill them up to everything else, but you can't, it's hard to teach people skills. And she looked at me like I had cross-eyed, but she's like, you're right.
Yeah, it's there's a whole host of things I think coming in. I do think that they were looking more at how to influence and how to kind of work with rather than just the knowledge. And one of the big things I think will change between now and 2030 is that knowledge base is easily accessible.
Yeah.
One of the and the World Economic Forum had a report in May 2023, and it's been ratified this year in the latest one. They spoke about the jobs that were most at risk were the high knowledge jobs, PhD jobs, things that were kind of process driven. So knowing something inside out is not enough nowadays because we can access that information. We've actually been able to access it for a long time.
Right.
It's something like generative AI allows us to access it in a way that we can use it.
Right.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
So all generative AI is doing is taking information that we've already got and packaging it in a way that makes sense to us because of how we prompt it, and then also learning about what's being put into it. So that knowledge base, I actually think, is likely to take a little bit more of a backseat. Nothing's going to be made redundant from this.
Right.
But it will become less important. And I'm sure you've seen it, creative thinking, strategic thinking, being able to kind of be innovative, analytical, and then kind of in the same breath.
Yeah.
Is what companies are going to need. So it's not about what the technology and the knowledge can do for us. It's how do we get the right knowledge out and use it.
Yeah.
And so I actually think knowledge-based leaders are probably going to struggle. We may be into the kind of the last generation of that, and more into the kind of the human center.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, it'd be amazing. Like what would happen in our workplaces if we valued emotional presence as much as we did, knowledge and performance. I mean, think about what that could do for your workplace,
Yeah. And performance is always going to be, it's going to be probably in a different way. We're going to be able to measure it in a different way. Again, using the knowledge base that we've got through technology, be able to implement it and maybe be a little bit more forgiving.
Mm-hmm. Giving.
Oh, yeah. Again, I kind of go back to what I mentioned earlier. We need to lower the bar for ourselves and others. And, I see lots of organizations that are highly KPI that have got, that look at everything through metrics. And there is definitely a place for it. But how much wiggle room do we have in it? And how much time is spent by trying to adjust something that doesn't actually be adjusted, it just needs to be understood.
Right.
Or by dumping a skill level there because it's 70%, not 100%, and just being able to kind of analyze this in different ways will maybe give us that little bit of leeway, and maybe that back to family, maybe that give that kind of wiggle room or benefit of the doubt more to those around us.
So it's a really exciting time to be coming up in the workplace right now. Is there any, final thoughts that you might have for these up and coming leaders, aside from, don't take yourself too seriously and you don't have to know everything. Is there anything special that you think people need to know, just given your vast experience around the world?
Vast experience. We're back onto my age. Thank you. Right. One thing, and this is for all generations.
I said around the world.
Okay. That's the key. This is for all generations. We need to be open here. Everything's about to change. And this is a positive thing. So when we look at the new generations coming through, we're already seeing some companies like Accenture, PwC, etc., that are doing excellent reverse mentoring programs. Reverse mentoring.
Yeah.
The opportunity here for people our age, I'm going to put you in the same bracket here, and our age, to learn and to be able to extend on something like this. We're away from we're lucky enough not to be in the physical manual workplace.
Yes.
We're in something else. And the value for young leaders coming through is what can you teach later or older generations? Why not?
Right.
And we've always seen, you mentioned mentoring earlier, we've always seen the older generations mentoring and say, this is how we've always done it. This is how you should go. That's going.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's absolutely going. That's the exciting part. So yes, there'll be nuance to it. Yes, there'll be the behavioral stuff. Yes, the natural things that we learn as we go through life.
Mm-hmm.
But the other parts, the skills part, that might just come the other way around. And that's a great thing.
We talk about, reverse. You and I, we've talked some over the years that our philosophy is so similar, and that reverse mentoring is so important. It's just the value that everybody adds. The wisdom that you can get from people our age, about, what was happened in the past, but then it's like, well, that's in the past, and where we're moving forward. And I think this is really exciting. I've embraced, the whole AI, like we're full on, because it's really cool and it's not going anywhere. So, I think that's yeah. So
yeah, we're developing a program, Human by Design, which is all about, at that high level. Let's not get into the details of technology. Let's get into how we use the technology, how we approach it, how do we be open to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Because the technology is going to be there. It's what it is.
Oh my gosh. What a great conversation. I miss talking to you. This has really been great. We got to do this more often. You've given like the listeners, just people so much to reflect on. For people that might want to stay in touch with you or learn more from you, which I highly recommend anyone, what's the best way for them to connect? And do you still have your podcast?
We do. Yes, I do. I've got a podcast called The Mind Behind, and it used to be Mind Behind Leadership, but we're actually taking it a lot broader now, kind of because there's so much going on. So
we'll add that link.
Make sure that you've got a link to that, because we'll get a link to that. But most easily, I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. There's only 3 Graham Dobbins in the world. And I'm the one with the pink shirt at Grand Central. So feel free to link in. And it's really, I'm working with LinkedIn tomorrow. I'm interviewing somebody from LinkedIn tomorrow over here. And LinkedIn's such a good place where I'm getting lots of people giving opinions, ideas, thoughts. So LinkedIn,
awesome.
Give me your thoughts, give me your ideas.
Love it. So this is a great, powerful conversation, Graham. Thank you for showing us that leadership doesn't need to be complicated, it just needs to be real. And to everyone listening, if this episode sparks something in you, if it helps you rethink how you lead or how you connect, we would love for you to help grow our conversation. Please like, share, and subscribe to the People Profit Podcast. That simple act helps bring us more of these honest, helpful conversations to leaders everywhere. If you want to connect with Graham, head over to his LinkedIn profile. He's definitely worth keeping in touch with. And remember, when we lead with humanity, profits follow naturally. People come first, and that's where the magic happens. I'm Sandra Coker. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the People Profit Podcast. Have a great day. That's a wrap on this episode of the People Profit Podcast. If you found a nugget of wisdom or even just a spark of inspiration, share the love, subscribe, leave us a review, and pass the episode along to a colleague who's ready to build a people-first culture. Big thanks to our sponsor, Human Power Solutions, for championing workplace where humans thrive and profits rise. Want to learn how they can energize your team? Head over to hpowersolutions.com to get started. I'm Sandra Coker, reminding you that when you invest in people, you invest in profit. See you next time.